Welcome to my cozy little corner. And today I'm actually doing a spring recommendations video. I decided to combine like my spring recs and my like spring TBR. I'm going to do 5 books I want to read and then 5 books I recommend, and I'll just go back and forth because I've come to the conclusion that, as much as I read a lot, trying to find things that like fit in the certain seasons, I don't have very many. I mean, I could probably do fall pretty easily. I feel like this is the best of both worlds. Before we get into the video, like, subscribe, and leave me a comment of what is your like ultimate spring book rec. I'd love to know because I'm trying to like make my spring list very spring. Okay, so for number one, we're gonna do one I have read. Now, to me, a spring book, an element, I guess you could say, that feels like spring to me is like Regency era. Obviously, like Bridgerton usually comes out during the spring, and the social season around that era was the springtime. So any sort of like Regency era book is spring to me. So the first book is called The Beautiful Ones. I read this last year, and like every time spring comes around, this is like the book I think about. This book is about Nina. It's in the Regency era, and she has telekinesis, and she doesn't really know how to use her powers very well. And she's just coming into the season, and she moves in with her cousin, and her cousin is helping her with the season. It's very like Bridgerton with telekinesis. I know, but it's really good. This author has quite a bit of like books in so many different genres. She's very, very good at kind of like switching it up, I guess, but I've read a few of hers, and this one's definitely my favorite. You get the angst that I feel like is required in a Regency era story. You get that light sprinkle of fantasy with the whole telekinesis thing, and then Nina's like very, very awkward, which I really like. The main character, she's very, very awkward. So it was fun being in her head, but this does have 3 different POVs because there's a character who is kind of like mentoring her and is reluctantly showing her how to use her powers. There's just this big giant love triangle between everybody. Oh, it's so good. And it's like surprisingly like hard to put down. So yeah, that was The Beautiful Ones. The next one is one that I want to read. Now, I'm actually planning on reading this. I've said this in a few videos. I'm planning on reading this like soon, like this coming month, April, and that is 100 Years of Solitude. So, this tells the story of the rise and fall, birth and death of a mythical town of Macondo through the history of the, don't want to butcher the name. I scribbled on this piece of paper. I'll put it on the screen because I scribbled and I literally cannot read my handwriting. But it's chronicling this family, and it is a multi-generational story with magical realism. I have spoken about this so many times. I want to read this book so bad. I just haven't had the chance to. And I was saving it for spring because it's probably the cover, but the cover gives spring. And then there's also something about historical fiction that kind of feels like spring to me. And then also magical realism that also kind of feels like spring. So with all those things combined, this book really feels like spring. So yeah, that's 100 Years of Solitude. The next one that I have read, I feel like this book can kind of be summer or spring, which honestly, most books in spring can kind of cross over. But this one is called Dragon Fruit. So I read this book last year. Yeah, no, either last year, I think it was the year before that. I read this book the year before last, and this is kind of a romantasy story that uses Pacific Island mythology. Honestly, I didn't even remember that it was romantasy. I do remember this was fun. Like, it wasn't something that stayed in my head for a very long time, but I do remember it being very fun. This is about a the concept that this has the concept of a egg of a sea dragon, a dragon fruit, holds the power to undo sorrow. And I do remember there being a slight romance. I guess there's more than I remember. I think the animal companion in this is really good. We get a lot of different like animals, and there's a lot of stuff on boats, and just the like Pacific Island mythology could definitely feel like summer, but it could also feel like spring if like you kind of want to cross over. Anything with like animals or water or nature is going to feel like spring to me. So if you want a fantasy that's a standalone that has like a light romance with animal companions and they're on a boat for most of it, Dragon Fruit. The next one that I want to read is The Last Unicorn. So I have been making my way through some classic fantasy. I just kind of want to see where the genre came from. And this is one that's on every classic fantasy have to read list. The Last Unicorn. I know there's a cartoon that I really want to watch. And if I'm being honest with you, I don't really know much about it. I know there's a unicorn. I know they're on a journey to find other unicorns. I know that it kind of has a cozy feel to it, I guess. I know it's older. I've seen a million pictures from the cartoon. Um, and honestly, I'm going to leave you at that because this is an older book. And so you've probably heard about it. And I know a lot of people who've like read it when they were younger. But the reason that this screams spring to me, there's something about a unicorn going through a magical forest that just feels like spring, does it not? Like a cozy fantasy with a unicorn and a magical forest. I don't know. If you don't think that's spring, I don't know what you think is spring. Anyways, yeah, so The Last Unicorn. I'm hoping to get to that sometime soon. We'll see. The next one is another Regency era like fantasy. This is typically talked about a lot on spring recommendations, but Half a Soul. So, Half a Soul is like a Fae Regency story about a girl who, when she was younger, I think she made a deal with the Fae. She's left with half her soul. So, she kind of goes about her life. She grows up and she's very like awkward is not even the term. It's actually very obvious that this is a metaphor for being on the spectrum. So she's different uh, than society is used to, and you kind of go from there. It's her, and then I think um, her best friend, and they are kind of going through the season together. But I believe they're also trying to figure out how to get her soul back. This has a very fairy tale feel to it, which also feels kind of springy, Regency era, so the season's in the spring. This does also have a romance in it. This if you like Howl's Moving Castle, the um the male love interest, he is very Howl coded, like a lot of like fairy tale leaning romantasy these days, but he's fun. He's a little grumpy magician. Yes. He's a little grumpy magician. I really enjoyed this. I really enjoy how the main character who has half the soul is written. Really good, and I highly recommend it for spring. Next one on my spring TBR is The Island of Missing Trees. So, this is about a forbidden love between a Greek Christian man and a Turkish Muslim woman in 1970s Cyprus. And I do know that part of the narration is a fig tree. So I have been trying to find like historical leaning stories that have romance in it. Not so much like Regency era romance or like like those types of romance, but more like historical fiction that has a very heavy romance. Like I almost want to say subplot, but it's not really a subplot. A great example of this would be like The Stationery Shop or like Homeseeking. I read both of those recently, and those both kind of have what I'm looking for of like it being very heavy historical, but then a romance all the way through. And so this is one that I heard a lot about. I've heard the writing is very lush. Side note, I just scratched my neck. I'm okay. I have very, very sensitive skin, and if I even like scratch a little bit, it turns beet red. I just had to put that out there before people are like, what's going on with her? Anyways, so I know it's like forbidden love, and it's on an island, and there's something about that setting and then the narration partly being a fig tree that feels very spring. Anything that has like heavy plants is going to feel very spring to me. I'm really really excited. I feel like this book has the potential for me to be like obsessed with it. I don't, with the exception of Vanishing Half, I don't really feel like I found anything that's like a new favorite. Oh, that's not true. Hamnet. So Hamnet, but that was like I already knew that was gonna happen. But I guess with those aside, I don't know. I guess what I'm trying to say is I'm pretty sure that this is going to be a new favorite. I don't know. The idea of the lush writing, the like fig tree narration, the forbidden love, the historical setting. I don't know. There's just something about this I really feel like I'm gonna like. I can't wait to get to it. And yeah, that is Island of Missing Trees. There's something about historical fiction that has always felt kind of springy to me. Spring, I always get bit by the historical fiction bug and just pretty much stay there until like summer's over. Um, but the next book that I want to recommend for the spring is The Secret Book of Flora Lee. So, this is a historical fiction book that is about two sisters who get sent to the countryside. They are both from London, and this is during the time of the Blitz. And so, this is a real thing they were doing where they were sending kids off to live with people in the like countryside so that they could be away from the bombing, obviously. And this is about two sisters who the older sister, to kind of like calm the younger sister down and just be there for her and help her kind of like escape, she would tell stories about this like made up world. Like, think kind of like Alice in Wonderland. And she just made up this world. It had a name, stories and characters, and she would just stay in this world and tell her little sister all these stories. And one day, her sister goes missing and she's never found. And so you go fast forward and you are following the older sister, and she works in a bookstore. And one day she works with like rare books, and one day a book comes across her desk, and it is called What Her World that she used to tell her sister was called. And so she's confused. She thought she came to terms with the disappearance of her sister, and when that book comes, she's like, my search isn't over, because how does anybody know about this place? Like, is my sister alive? Did she publish this? So the whole book is kind of a dual POV that's going back and forth and talking about her trying to find her sister among other things in her life, and then also like the getting sent to the countryside and her sister going missing and all of that stuff. The main reason why it feels like spring to me is just the historical fiction, and then it being like set partly in the countryside. You get a lot of them running around the fields and telling stories. Like, you get like there's a river by their house, so you get a lot of that. I loved this. This was a book that, like, when I finished it, I didn't think I was going to think about it a lot, and then time went by and I was like, "Oh, actually I think about this book all the time." Probably because I have a sister, and so I connected on that. It has this kind of air of mystery where you're almost like, is this gonna be magical realism? Like, does this world exist? And you're pretty sure that it's not, but like it has that kind of writing where you're like, it almost feels like it could be. Um, and then also someone who's like half their personality is being in love with Alice in Wonderland. The idea of somebody like telling a portal fantasy and then their sister disappearing and them not sure if now this world exists. I don't know. I really liked it and I really want more people to read it. And I think that if you like World War, like two books, but you want something a little bit different, I think this is a good one. The next one that's on my want to read is a book that to me is quintessential spring. Like, when I put together a like spring TBR, this is always the book that's on the very top because it feels so spring, and that is Watership Down. So I am actually like 40%. I think I'm like 40% through Watership Down. If you don't know anything about Watership Down, it is literally about a group of rabbits who leave their burrow, or I forgot what the correct word is called, but like they leave their place and they go to find somewhere else to live. And so it's about their journey. It's also like they tell stories, they have like a religion, like obviously it feels like spring because it's bunnies, right? But it also feels so much deeper than just bunnies running around. Um, in the beginning, the introduction, he talks about like getting with a scientist so he can make sure the bunnies feel like actual bunnies. That's like something that I really enjoy so far about it, is that it's not like really like anthropomorphic bunnies because they don't act like humans. You're just getting bunnies acting like bunnies from their point of view. I don't know. Also, the audiobook is narrated by Peter Cabaldi, and it's amazing. His voices are amazing. I think if you are going to read this at all, you should like either do the audio or immersion read it. Like, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. You got to read the audiobook. Like, it's so good. It's so cute. It's perfect, and it really feels like you're there. Oh, it's so good. But yeah, this is on my spring TBR. I'm halfway through this book. Hopefully, I can finish it soon because I have a lot of thoughts I want to talk about with you guys. But yeah, that is Watership Down. So, the last spring recommendation book is another historical fiction. Yeah. And that is the Tea Girl of Hummingbird Lane. So, if you watched my wrap up for February, this was the last book I read in February. This is a Lisa C book, and Lisa C likes to pick like a group of people in history or a group that not a lot of people know about and kind of give light to them and give them a voice. And this is about a Chinese ethnic group called the Akai people. Um, and it's a the reason why it feels like spring is because these people, like, they're very spiritual, and they're tea pickers. And so a lot of the beginning of this book is these people farming and their rituals and them picking the tea and them serving the tea and a lot of conversations around that. It's really, really good, but this is a very like it it's very expansive. So you have a girl who grows up in this group, and then you kind of also have follow this girl for a really long time, and she takes some turns in her life that I found very, very interesting. And I think it's best to go into it blind because when I read the description, I didn't even really understand what was going on in the description. What I understood was this was about a Chinese ethnic minority who's like who are very spiritual, and their life revolves around tea and tea picking. Is very good. It's very good. It's very long, and there's also points in it that can feel a little hard to read, but I do think it's worth it because I felt like I learned something. And it's part of the reason why I like historical fiction, but sometimes, like in The Secret Book of Flora Lee, I didn't really feel like I learned anything. But I had a lot of fun. But in this one, I felt like I learned something. And that Yeah, and that was the Tea Girl of Hummingbird Lane. And then the very last one, I actually need to pull up what it's about because, so like I said, I have been reading a lot of classic fantasy, or trying to read a lot of classic fantasy. And when I say classic, I mean in feeling and in age. This isn't like super old, but it's decently old. And that is The Daughter of the Forest. This is a Juliette Marillier book. Her last name is so hard for me to say. She is known for having a very fairy tale like writing style, very, very lush writing style, which I love. I have heard that this book has lots and lots of magical forest writing. I know it is a retelling of some sort of fairy tale. I don't really know much else about it. But like I said, I think I'm sold when you tell me that it has lush fairy tale writing. I'm here for it. Um, yeah, very excited to get to that. That will probably be really far under my TBR for spring. But yeah, that is The Daughter of the Forest. So yes, those are the 5 books I want to read and then the 5 spring recommendations. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.